What are the differences between title and escrow in Oklahoma versus other states? And why in the world do we care if you're married or not? Stick around and we will share with you all the details. Hey everybody, this is Natalie with Remax First in Oklahoma City, and today I am with Elena Cochran at Chicago Title in Oklahoma City, and we are going to share with you some of the unique things about title and owning property in Oklahoma. And so Elena, thanks for doing this.
Of course, I'm happy to be here.
Tell everybody just a little bit about yourself and where you're from.
I am originally from Georgia, and I have moved around a lot with my husband's job. I started out as an attorney in Georgia doing real estate closings, and when his job moved, we've gone from Oklahoma to Nashville, Tennessee, Fresno, California, back to Oklahoma, then to Florida, and then now back to Oklahoma. So I've been able to do title and escrow in quite a few states, and it has been really interesting to see how the different states, how they all do escrow and title just a little bit different.
Elena, what is one of the biggest differences with how we do escrow in Oklahoma versus the other states you've worked in?
So one of the biggest things is when dealing with conveying or buying property in Oklahoma versus other states, Oklahoma has homestead laws that require the spouse to be involved. So if you are married and you are thinking of buying property or selling property in Oklahoma, just know that your spouse will have to be involved and likely sign something at some point.
How about some examples?
Yes, of course. So when we have, let's say we pull title to the property and the title is held by John Smith. Before closing, we have to specifically ask John Smith, are you married? His answer will determine how we prepare the deed. If he is married, his spouse will have to sign that deed conveying property along with her husband, even if she is not entitled to the property. And that is because Oklahoma's homestead laws give a marital interest to the property to spouses, even if they're not on the deed.
Right. So if you buy a house and then you move here and you fall in love and get married, that house becomes an interest to your spouse, right?
Yes.
Even though they weren't around when you bought it.
Yes, it is based on your marital status at the time of the sale of the property.
Elena, why do we have this law when so many other states don't? What does it protect?
So Oklahoma lawmakers decided that the family home is something that they wanted to protect. So what they do is they say for in town, you have 1 acre that you can consider your homestead. You can file that with the county to get a discount on your property taxes. But any home that you live in as your primary residence is considered your homestead, which means you can have creditors who come after you. They cannot force you to sell that home to pay those creditors. So it protects the people living in the home and gives them an interest in the homestead so that bankruptcy creditors cannot come out and force the sale of the home underneath them.
So Elena, a lot of the people who are watching this video are considering moving here and buying a home here. So what do they need to know as a buyer in regards to how homestead works with married people?
If you are buying property in Oklahoma and you're going to use a loan, usually both husband and wife will sign the mortgage. And that way, both parties know that they have a homestead exemption in there. And if the loan forecloses, the home can be foreclosed upon on both of those homesteads. However, if you're going through a divorce and you prefer your soon-to-be ex-spouse not sign the new mortgage, there are ways around it. It is up to every lender individually. You need to speak with them first, but some lenders are allowing spouses to not sign the mortgage because the purchase money mortgage comes first and above priority of the homestead exemption. So bottom line is, if you want to buy property in Oklahoma and you're moving here and you're going through a divorce or you think you're going to be getting divorced soon, the first thing you want to do is find a lender who will allow you to sign that mortgage by yourself without your spouse added on.
What kind of title do you take if you are not wanting your spouse to be involved?
So you can take title by yourself as an individual on the deed. So whenever you go to sell, you only have to have a spouse sign if you're married at that time. So even if you're legally married at the time you purchase the property, you can choose to go into title by yourself as an individual. a sole person. And that way you own title to the property, and obviously you'll be divorced most likely before you decide to sell. So when you go to sell, you're the only one that has to deed out that property as long as you're still single.
Okay, so Elena, what would you say to that man out there that is like,
I'm going to buy my wife a house and surprise her
in Oklahoma?
Ideally, what a sweet guy.
You have the most beautiful soul. You're so sweet and kind.
But he would need to speak with a lender first. If he wants to buy cash, he is welcome to do that. We would put him on the deed by himself. However, his wife would absolutely need to be available whenever he goes to sell that property. If he wants to get a loan on the property, he'll need to make sure the lender is okay with him going into title by himself and not having his wife sign the mortgage. Otherwise, it would really spoil the surprise.
And really, husband, you probably just shouldn't do it. You should probably say, let's buy a house and let her choose the house.
Oh, that's a great
versus you pick it out.
Yeah.
So if you're planning to move here and buy a home and you have questions about your loan or your title, of whether or not your spouse needs to be a part of the signing, that's just something you need to clear up with your lender ahead of time before you get into the middle of the transaction.
Well, it's funny because people, a lot of times, this is a great distinction. People are like, I'm the only one in title. Why does my spouse have to come? And I'm like, I get it. Even if you were the only one on the loan the whole time, even if the deed only has your name, it's not just that your spouse, you have to go into title with your spouse. It's that floating marital interest is always there. So whether you're in title by yourself or not, if you're married at the time of closing, your spouse has to sign the deed, the same deed that you sign.
So you've been doing title in various states. What are some differences between Oklahoma versus doing title in Georgia or Florida or any of the other places you've lived?
There are some really big differences, especially on closing day. So here in Oklahoma, we usually sign the buyer first, and then we bring the seller in and swap them out and sign the seller by themselves. But in Georgia, everybody came to the table at the same time. So I would have buyers on one side, sellers on the other, realtors in the room, and it can get a lot of people going on.
Which is great if everyone's happy.
Yes, and people are not always happy. So we're always happy to separate people. But in California, no one came to closing.
Right.
Sellers would pre-sign, and then buyers would sign with a mail-out notary. And we weren't considered funded and closed until the deed of record was actually on record with the county. Here, we're closed and funded, and then we send the deed to be recorded later. So there are small nuances in each state, but overall, the process is similar, but it's really important to have a very talented realtor who knows their stuff, who knows the Oklahoma laws, who knows and has experience in doing this over years, like Natalie, who can help you navigate the process if you're new to Oklahoma.
Or knows who to call when something is new and interesting. And I would say it's important for us to communicate, for you to tell me if there's anything interesting about your relationship status, or if there's any questions or anything that we could know ahead of time so we can get addressed and how to best deal with it when the transaction happens.
Yes. Always good to know some basics ahead of time. What's the current marital status? Are you planning on getting divorced anytime soon? Has anyone recently passed away who's involved in the transaction or ever held title to the property? Those are really important things you want to tell your realtor up front.
Thanks for watching. Come back next week when I am going to share with you more exciting things going on in Oklahoma City. And if you are planning to move to Oklahoma and you are planning to buy a property, give me a call and let's chat and get started. Bye-bye.